always leaving impressions, no matter what. We are leaving an impression, and we have to make sure that that impression is the one we want to be leaving. And that all starts off with something very simple, which is personal branding. So what do I mean by that? I want you to think about the next interview you're going to do. And I'd like you to imagine that the interview is completed and they're talking about you. What 3 words would they use to describe you? So any of you, what 3 words would you like? And you can put it in the chat box if you like.
Intelligent, approachable,
Authentic.
Nice.
Me, empathetic as well, because my job is being a recruiter.
Smart, authentic, passionate. Thank you. Communicative, tolerant, friendly. I love these words. Now, what we have to understand is that each of those words has a look and a sound. So how are impressions formed? Let's just take a look on my overhead right now. What we do is always communicated in these 3 ways: visual, vocal, and verbal. What you say, what your body language looks like, and how you sound. Now, obviously, what you say is essential. It is going to be the basis for them making decisions about you. But why is this important, the visual and the vocal? They're important. These nonverbals are important because they're the lens in which you are viewed through. So let me just take one of these words, friendly. We'll use that one, Moni. What does friendly look and sound like? How would I know you were friendly? Using positive body language. Excellent.
smile.
Thank you. So a smile, absolutely.
Yeah.
Maybe open body language. A friendly person might lean in a bit, might have a tilted head. So when we start with what are those 3 words, and then break it down, what does it look and sound like? We're going to be able to have a better chance of leaving the impression we want to leave. We are always being judged on a continuum between appearing approachable and credible. Now, there's no good or bad here, but they are different. And they are based on your body language and your tone of voice. That's how those determinations are going to be met. This is a very credible, I'm straightforward. If I want to be approachable, maybe I do this. Or I lean in a bit, right? It changes everything, how the camera sees you, or even if you're live with people. So the straight body language is more credible. The approachable is tilted, leaning in. So that's the first part. Then there's a vocal part to this also. How our voice sounds makes a difference. The approachable voice tends to bob up and down and goes up at the end. And it can sound like a question, or it could be really bubbly. That's the approachable. Now, the credible, again, we're going to keep fairly straight body, and the voice tends to be a little flatter and goes down at the end. And so if you can imagine, if you're interviewing for a job where it's very serious and they want to trust you, the credible voice tends a little flatter, goes down, and it's very much like a newscaster. So if you can imagine a newscaster saying, "And in the news tonight," at the end of the sentence, your chin drops slightly, and it gives a finality to your sound. When you do that, what you say is going to be a lot more believable, as opposed to with what you say is going to be a lot more believable, right? You hear the difference? And they're subtle. This is going to be subconscious with your group, whoever's interviewing you. They may not be able to say, "Oh, I see they're in a credible stance. They're just going to say, oh, I really believe what they're saying. So let's talk a little bit about how on camera is different than it would be if you were live with somebody else. When you are in person in an interview, you're allowed to move a lot more. You can use the space more. When you're on camera, you have to be still. Because what does this look like if I do this? What's that look like?
Well, not serious.
Not serious, maybe nervous, right? So when we're on camera, we need to be still. Any movement can be really distracting. You also want to make sure that you are positioned in this space and you are filling up as much of the space as you can. You don't want to be like this, or let me see if I get it really well. Take up very little, because it feels like, oh, you don't feel like you belong here. I own the space, I take up the space. The other thing is how we work with the camera is different. And so again, this is subconscious. The closer I am to the camera, I know that's a little scary. The closer I am to the camera, the more I have to lower my volume and my energy. This would feel like subconsciously as if we're knee to knee. So it's a pretty intimate conversation. And so we don't want to get really big because it's scary. If we have about this much, it's as if we're across a table from somebody. So you can use gestures, just make sure they're above this line because gestures down here seem a little weird. So you can use gestures. You can have a little more energy the way you would if you were talking to somebody across a table. Now, if you're farther back, then you can even get bigger and have more energy. It's as if you were across a long table from somebody else, or maybe they're in the front row of an audience. So again, how you project is going to depend on how much of you is showing. So that's really important because the camera changes everything for that. When you are seated, it's really good to sit in the first third of the chair. When we sit back in the chair, it crunches our diaphragm and we won't have the power our voice needs to have. So we want to be in the first third of the chair, knees at a 90-degree angle to the floor, feet flat, pointed forward. This will also keep us from moving in our chair a lot, which again is kind of distracting, and it will make you look nervous. That's the visual part of your message. Now, the other thing that you need to do is make sure you are well lit. And there are some sneaky tricks for that. If you're on Zoom, you can go and try this, Roy. Go where it has the little camera. There's a caret right next to it. Go to video settings, and you'll see a thing that says adjust for low light. And when you do that, especially if there's a lot of light coming from behind you, it will give more light to your face.
And here it's on auto. If I put it on manual, whoa. Can you see me?
Yeah.
And I'm going to go back to remove about, this is my natural state.
So
with
get
light
it a
behind
little
me.
lighter. Much better. Maybe a little too much because now you're a bit washed out.
Here
But
we go.
if you can, make sure if you can do it, light behind you is harder for the camera. So either put yourself up against a blank wall, make sure that whatever behind you is part of the image you want to present. Just a plain wall or a nice photo is fine. You can use the blur my background, but again, it'll change how you're perceived because some of your hair will get wonky. So that's some of the visual things you should think about. If you will have things behind you, make sure they match your brand, whatever that brand is. So if you want to work at a library, maybe you have books behind you or something that again, says, I'm the person you want for this job. Let's talk a little bit about voice now, because how you sound is very important. And we're going to look at a couple of things: tone, range, articulation, power, pace, and pause. So tone. Tone is, well, if you think about this, if you have good tone, what does it give you as a person being interviewed? How will the person perceive you if you have good tone?
I
Credible.
think,
Credible, excellent.
and easy to listen to, I think.
Ooh, nice, yes. Now, tone is simply the vibration of air in a chamber. And if you want to practice this, practice humming. See if you can get the hum in your chest. That's one of the areas that vibrate. In your vocal cords, in your sinus cavities, or the top of your head. So where that sound is placed changes how you're perceived. It's the difference of, Luke, I am your father, which is all chest, right? Spoiler alert on that. From, or to, a very nasally sound, or just a light sound. To be credible, there needs to be some chest sound. That doesn't mean, especially if your voice isn't deep, that you do a fake voice, but get some thickness in your voice so it has more credibility. The next one on our list is range. Range is the opposite of monotone. When we have some range in our voice, what does it give us?
Well, it's not
Interesting.
dull. Oh,
Yeah, did you say not dull? Yes, exactly. So how do we make sure we have good range in our voice? Well, one of the things is eye contact. When I am making eye contact with somebody else, my voice naturally goes up and down. Also, hand gestures will help you get more range. The next on our list is articulation. What does it give us if we have good articulation?
I can understand you well.
Yes,
Or-
understandable.
Understandable, yeah. Thank you. So articulation is something that we can work on. And I really want you to do this before you give an interview. So I'm going to have you all practice this right now. Before we start the warm up, I'm going to have you say the words red leather, yellow leather. Please, everybody do that.
Red leather, yellow leather.
Okay, just remember how that feels in your mouth. Now we're going to start warming up your articulators which are your lips, your teeth, and the tip of your tongue. But to do that, let's get your hands nice and warm. Everybody do that. Go to your jaw, kind of warm up your jaw here. Feels so good. Take your tongue. Say other side. Now kiss and grin. And kiss and grin. One more time. Kiss and grin. And now say unique New York. Unique New York. Unique New York. Now, the big black bug bled black blood. The big black bug bled black blood. One more, a proper cup of coffee in a proper copper coffee cup. A proper cup of coffee in a proper copper coffee cup. Great. Now say red leather, yellow leather. Does your mouth feel different?
Red leather, yellow leather.
Feels
Much,
different, right?
much deeper. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and you should have more room in your mouth. You won't feel tongue-tied, and you will be able to articulate a lot more clearly. It sounds goofy, but before the interview, warm up your articulators. The next on our list is power. We want power in our voice because what does power give us?
Authority.
Yes. Now, if we were going to, I won't make you do that because some of you are in the library and you will scare everybody. But one of the ways to practice this is to take your hands, curl them up, bring them into your body while you're saying, huh. So 1, 2, 3, huh. So that's pretty goofy. Why do we do that? Because that gets us used to using our diaphragm. And the diaphragm is what you want to use to push air up through your vocal cords so that you have a voice of authority. Practice that a few times, get that diaphragm working. Next on our list is pace. When we have proper pace, what does it give us? It helps us be understood.
Yeah.
A proper pace is anywhere between about 130 to 170 words per minute, with the average being about 150. When should you speed up? Go to that 170.
That's a question, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, if you have limited time, I think.
It could be if you have limited time, you might want to speed up. Not too much because when you speed up, you can sound nervous. I would rather that when you speed up, it is to show excitement or to match the interviewer's pace. So if you're feeling like time is an issue, I want to show you something that works very well. If you're planning on what you want to say, think about what is it that the interviewer absolutely needs to know, what would be nice to know, and where can they go if you run out of time. This way, you never, ever, ever have to run out of time. So I come into the interview and I think I absolutely need them to know this and that about me. If I have extra time, it'd be great if they also knew this. But if time is not going to my way, maybe I can have a handout they give them or some other information where they can go to get this other information I didn't have time with. Now, why might we want to go slower? Is there any reason to go slower?
Creates credibility and puts weight in the words.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing is, if your native language isn't the native language of the person who's interviewing you, then you absolutely need to slow down. Moni said this was a really good point too, when you're presenting complex information. Absolutely. Really good point. So that's when you slow down. The last on our list is really important, and I think we don't do this enough. Pausing. Pausing will keep you from doing ums and ahs. It makes you sound thoughtful. You can let ideas sink in. You can slow down using a pause. And on and on and on. There are so many reasons for us to use pauses. You will feel more control over the conversation with pause, as opposed to, I just got to get everything out and I'm not going to even take a breath because I want you to get everything that I wanted to say. If I take my time, I use my pauses, then I'm going to appear far more credible. So that if we look at the visual and vocal part of our message on camera, these were going to help you leave the impression that you started with today when we asked, what 3 words would you like people to use to describe you? One other thing I want to leave you with is always prep for an interview. And by that, I mean, 1, research the company. Research the interviewer if you can. What do you know about them? So you can maybe have some conversation around that. Think about how you want to be perceived. What about this job is exciting to you? How do you think you're the best fit for it? Then I want you to think about 20 questions the interviewer might ask you and come up with succinct answers. Don't memorize them, just feel comfortable answering them. And I promise you, when you do that, you're going to feel a lot more confident. Now, speaking of confidence, the thing I want to leave you with is how to start off feeling more confident. What I'm going to ask you to do before you even turn on the camera or go to the interview, take 3 belly breaths, just like in yoga. Get that nice breath in, slowly exhale. 1 more breath in, slowly exhale, and do a 3rd one. In and then exhale. It's all using the belly. Until you get good at belly breathing, a longer exhalation than inhalation will do the same thing. When you have that good breath, you have been prepped, you understand how you want to be perceived, you're going to knock your interview out of the park.